You're watching CCN, Clarksville Community Network, produced by Goodwin Productions. Powered by CDE Lightband.
Hello, I'm Scott Wise. I'm a local firefighter and sculptor. I'd always drawn, even coloring books when I was 4 or 5 years old. Cartoon figures, portraits of the family. Born and raised in Clarksville. 1966. Been here most all my life. When I'm working in stone, first of all, I sketch and sketch and sketch. Well, I guess any piece I do that. I'll have thumbnail sketches, sometimes 40 or 50 of them, before I kind of settle on a pose or what I plan on doing. I did the Kneeling Soldier on Madison Street. It's at Veterans Plaza. And Frank Sutton. After the tornado downtown, there was a commission, 2 bronze pieces. One of them's called The Day After, and the other piece with that commission is John Montgomery, and it's at City Hall now. Most of my things have sold in Nashville and then out of state, of course. Got a couple of pieces in Australia. And I did some furniture pieces too. I did benches, several of those too. I did my own furniture. I had coffee tables and end tables in my house because I couldn't find anything that I really wanted. Now I have steel and limestone coffee tables. I just figured if it was something fun to do or something that I wanted to do, I'd just do it. I could do things with my hands or whatever, and I enjoyed doing it. It was more of a hobby than anything. Never thought about making a living really doing it. When I was 12, I ended up having a cyst on my spinal cord. So I couldn't play sports, and I was all up into sports. I loved them. I had back surgery, and I had to wear a back brace for 3.5 years. That put a damper on a lot of things. I started drawing a lot of portraits and stuff, so I had to kind of change my way of thinking. When you operate on a 12-year-old, it's a big deal. What are you going to do? Have a pity party? You got to move on. That downtime, if you want to call it. We didn't have video games. We had 3 TV stations, you know? It's a whole lot different now. I just started drawing Mad Magazine, those kind of things at the time, and cartoon characters, and then I started drawing from photographs of family portraits, and some of them were as big as my fingernail. And I would get with a ruler and enlarging these photographs, and I would do life-size portraits. So I had to learn how to put detail in it. I mean, a lot of it I learned by myself, just to make them right. I'd learned how to play the guitar, I was drawing, and I would help my dad. He was always building stuff. My father passed away about 8 months after I graduated. He died in 1984. I had just turned 18. That was just a traumatic, event. So I guess it kind of came from that. Once I did graduate, I ended up going to Austin Peay, and I was a photography major the first 2 years. Laid out a year, worked around town, different odd jobs and whatnot, just really no direction. I was fortunate enough in 1988 to go to London. It was a drawing and painting school. So I raked and scraped, worked different odd jobs, and I ended up going and spent the whole summer there, and I had a ball. We drew and sketched all over London. When I came back, I had like 3 different sketchbooks full of sculptures that I had drawn from the British Museum and London itself. It really did hit me then that, no matter where you looked, it was just art, it was just there. And it was a little bit different coming back home. So I thought, well, why in the heck am I sketching all of these things? Maybe I should actually try to make one. So there was a piece of limestone down in Olin Bryant's at Austin P in the Traherne. I was really pleased with it. It was the first limestone piece that I had carved, and it actually got into a show in Nashville, All-State show, and a woman from Schenectady, New York actually purchased the piece. And I remember when I sold it, I thought, man, I have made it. It was the first piece I ever sold, and I fell in love with carving limestone. Went on to change my major. I changed from photography to sculpture, and I graduated in 1990. Just about as soon as I graduated, I thought, well, okay, now what? I was still working part-time jobs, and I had a degree in sculpture. Well, there's not a big demand for sculptors. Nobody's gonna knock on your door. If it's something that you desire to do, do it. Alan LaQuire, a sculptor in Nashville. They did the Musica and the Athena. The Athena is at the Parthenon in Centennial Park in Nashville off of West End. And it's the largest indoor sculpture in the Western Hemisphere. It's like 42 foot tall. It was a tail end of Athena there at first, 1990, I guess, that fall. And it was just finishing up. It took him a long time. I got to work on the pediment part of it, and we cast some Nike heads and different things. It changed throughout the years. I think it was only supposed to be 13 foot tall and out of wood, I think, when it first come about. So a lot of things changed, and he learned a lot. Alan, a great portrait artist. I mean, it's real realistic things. I learned a lot from Alan. Mold making, the whole bronze, that's where I first really got introduced to it. He had done a visiting artist at Austin P. I just happened to be in Nashville one day about a month after I graduated, and I had his card, his business card. I just went and knocked on the door, and he was there, and he was moving all of his studios into one in Germantown. Before we ever did any kind of artwork, spent, I don't know, 5 or 6 months moving things for him. I got to work mostly portraiture with Alan. He's really talented, and he's a good guy. Worked with him for about 3 years. In 1990, the first piece I ever sold was like 400 something bucks for this sculpture that I had spent almost 5 months carving. When I started thinking about how much I made an hour, I'm gonna have to get another job, apparently. I worked for Olin Bryant probably 8 years. In that time frame, I started working, I got a job at the fire department. My kids like to eat every day, so I had to have a constant income. But I was fortunate enough to be at the fire department. I've been there 23 years now, and it's been great. The guys are great, the whole organization's great. And like I said, I still enjoy working at the fire department, and I'm able to work on some things. Most of the things that I cast now, which I've done several firefighter pieces, those are in Dover, Delaware. I did the Tennessee State Fallen Firefighter Memorial. It's in Bell Buckle. It's at the Fire Academy. And then the ones down here. I love doing the firefighter pieces. Those are great. They mean a lot to me. I did the boots and helmet. The Leaf Chronicle at the time actually cast the piece. The actual firefighter piece behind it, I did that piece too, which is a life-size figure. That was for 9/11, which I was on duty when that happened. And I guess for a lot of people, but especially if you're in the firefighter family, that's huge. So that was just something that I could do in remembrance. And it's like a family. So, we kind of keep it in the family, we get on each other's nerves and whatnot. I've seen some stuff, but just being able to deal with it and to be able to work through any kind of stuff like that, things that you've seen, and work together doing it. 23 years. I'll be going into my 24th this fall. It is a brotherhood. You're embraced. They'll swap shirts and patches and whatnot. I keep thinking about 25 years, I'm eligible to retire. Well, that's only 2 more years. So, you work toward that, I guess. And you're always in it. Those guys are great. I've been blessed in a lot of different areas, and that is definitely one of them. But it also freed me up on my days off to be able to carve, do different shows, and work with Olin. I wouldn't take anything for that. I was still living over by Austin P at the time, and Olin Bryant lived right behind me. We had always gotten along, and Olin he was always there for me. So actually, I started working for him. I've done enough pieces for Olin, just finishing out his wood pieces and some clay things, but mostly wood. I don't really mess with wood. I was working with Olin till I got these 2 commissions. I was at the fire department as well, and things were picking up. I started getting more jobs. Of course, he was happy for me that, things were going well. There's a lot of stonework here, but it's all in private collections. Olin had a bunch, and I don't know whatever happened to all his things. I know Alan bought some of those because they auctioned off a bunch of that stuff, and I just couldn't bring myself to go, really. I've got some pieces of Olin's that he'd given me, and that's enough. The experience from Olin really it's hard to describe, really. He opened my eyes to a lot of different things. I remember him talking about the first time he went to Europe. And he has sort of the same background as, my mother was from Bumpus Mills, not too far down the road. I had family or friends even, they didn't really get it. It just wasn't something that they had seen and had no reference for it. We were, rural people, sharecropper type, and Olin had that same background. And to go to Europe, from being in a tobacco field, it's a shock, but it's just right there in your face. That's when he realized that art is. It just is. It's there. He was always there for me, unbelievably generous. And he believed in me, he believed in Mike Andrews. He was just a good man. Really helped us out a lot, especially me. Olin bought my first studio for me. I had it built, but he funded the whole thing. I really think a lot of Olin, always will. Sorry. I was fortunate enough to finally get a commission. I'd had some stone commissions, different sizes. The first piece was John Montgomery, the founder of Clarksville. And that was kind of interesting because I got to do the research on John Montgomery and find out Clarksville was named for his general in the Revolutionary War with George Rogers Clark. I just got to learn a little bit about his life. It was actually the longest out of any of them. I took on that chore myself. I did half of the piece in the rubber molds, and then I took the rest of it to the foundry. So that one probably took about 8 months on my part, another 6 months, I guess, for them to put it all together and cast it. So that was the first piece, and then the second piece was The Day After, which is the man on the bench by the courthouse. It's in bronze, and he's reading the Leaf Chronicle, the newspaper. The heading is The Day After the Tornado Hit. Everybody always says it's somebody, you know, John F. Kennedy or somebody like that. They just wanted a local Joe, no particular person. But that was a fun piece to do. And I took it straight to the foundry, and they did all the mold making, and that's the way I do it from now on. It's just much easier. You know, most everything in bronze, anyway, that's the way I would work. Up until Sergeant Carter, which was Frank Sutton. He was born and raised there several years here in Clarksville. He was on the TV show Gomer Pyle. So it always starts with sketches, except for this guy. Fortunately, there's a lot of pictures of Frank Sutton. So I worked from photographs to make that sculpture. It's always been the hardest thing for me to do when these portraits of somebody recognizable, especially if they passed away or if it's a historical figure, and you have to work from paintings, and there's also usually a lot of photographs of them. Had to have the "I can't hear you" from the show. That had to come across. That piece I started using this technology. A friend of mine from the fire department, we actually scanned him 3D, and it was carved out of styrofoam. I just put a clay skin around it and then do all the modeling. That was the first piece where I used that technology stuff. Time-wise, it was great. I could lift the whole piece up by myself. This was the original, but when it's pulled out of a mold, it really gets beat up. But this is the clay piece afterwards. This technology saves me a lot of time. I'm still a little old school, but I'm willing to learn. And I think he turned out pretty well. I did the Kneeling Soldier on Madison Street. It's at Veterans Plaza. That's actually my father. It's a portrait of him. My father was in the military. We came back to Clarksville all those years. So I went to high school and went to Austin P here. He always wanted us to go to college. Whatever money you did make, nobody could take it away from you, or you'd be smart enough, hopefully. They were developing that area at Veterans Plaza, and they wanted a sculpture there that represented all 5 branches of the military. I could make it whoever I wanted to make it. Doug Weiland was county mayor then. I asked him, and I told him, I said, I may try to do it to look like my father if that's okay. And he was okay with that. For 26 years, all of his stateside duty was at Fort Campbell. So he would go to Korea, he was at Vietnam twice, and then he retired as a sergeant major. And then I just had to get pictures from my mom to make sure I did it right. I tried to use memory, but you know, it's years ago. I was trying to get a time frame for my father, so I was using pictures that we had. The problem with that is most people don't take pictures all the way around themselves as you're going through life. I would take some of the guys from the fire department. There was a couple that were in the military, and they had their Army uniforms. And I would just set them in that pose, and I would take whatever pictures I could around them to get measurements. I had my mother come over throughout that process, and I knew when she didn't have anything to say and sort of had a tear running down her eye that I had it right. So I kind of stopped at that point, and then we had it cast. Sometimes I want to stop and, you know the story behind that piece? To kind of inform them, but it's really kind of not the point of it. It's something that they're enjoying and that I've been able to make for them to enjoy. When I came back from London is when I really started carving Indiana limestone. This book here is
pretty much stone pieces. A lot of artists do, as far as just letting the material sort of dictate what it's going to be. I have a purpose.
My stone pieces tend to be more abstract. It was just really available. You know, it's an architectural stone. They use it a lot on like making signs, keystones over windows in the houses. It's real pure. I made a lot of birds. They're just small little things. They're kind of like little exercises just to kind of get started. I guess over time I could do one in an hour, and now it takes me 5 hours to do one, just because they're different and more finished. I used to make those when I had the booth at the crafts fair, and I would have different sculptures. Most of them are figurative, abstract pieces. When they're finished and they're sanded, they'll actually hold a shine if you take them up far enough, you know, when you're sanding them. Of course, if they're inside, but as soon as they go outside and get rained on a few times, that finish is gone. But I do kind of like the patina that kind of comes on them. I made a piece several years back. It's a reclining figure. I got 3 pieces of limestone up there that were trucked down here on a semi. It's at Old Hickory now. It's finished finally. It was 28,000 pounds of Indiana limestone. And when I finished carving it, it was about 9,000 pounds, let's say. So I carved off almost 20,000 pounds of limestone, so I learned a lot out of that piece. And I still carve stone, not as much as I used to. The older I get, I think I want to take up painting. Just really the birds is the only thing I've made lately, mainly because I'm still mobile sculpting without a studio right now. But it'll come around, hopefully one day. When I was 12 and I had to wear that back brace 23 hours a day, and there'd always been a guitar around my grandfather's. He had an old dobro that he played. My uncle, he played around everywhere, and a lot of bluegrass kind of stuff. I'll kind of pick it up. I enjoy it. I still enjoy it.
I've always been interested in music and sculptural pieces and cellos, guitars. This piece here was sold. I actually carved it.
Because music's such a big part of my life. So I had done sort of a cubistic kind of piece for songwriters in Nashville. There was a record producer, I think, that's bought one. They're at their homes. 2 guitar pieces. Both of them were acoustic guitars. I've done fiddle or violin. And the violin's more modern, I guess. You know, it's not the traditional.
There's a mandolin that I carved. It's a memorial for Wayne Brown. It's in West Virginia, I believe.
I did a cello. Now it is abstract. They're actually life-size. And they're all out of stone. All of those were out of stone. They're just fun to do. And they're so sculptural, every instrument. I know they're stone, but they're still musical. I keep saying I'm a connoisseur of music because I like it all. Music's always been around. As far as the artwork goes, like I said, I've been blessed to be able to do that, and I hope to continue to do it. I would really like to do some more abstract things. Most of the time an artist will do one or the other, realistic or it's abstract. It's not either or. For whatever reasons, the stone pieces, I mean, I can do them realistically. Stone just seems to flow better if it's abstract to me. And like I said, most artists don't work that way, but I've been fortunate enough to work with a really great portrait artist, with Alan, and abstract things with Olin. But that wouldn't have happened if I hadn't have made that connection and knocked on his door. Both of them, for that matter. Some of those pieces affect people differently, good and bad. And I think they're designed to do that. I just think that that's the way they're made, you know, to affect people so that you can be on a personal level with it. I mean, I think that's why it's there. That's why art is. Now, I didn't really have a direction for a long time, but I just knew I enjoyed doing it. And, do what you feel. If you can't afford to buy granite or marble, there's plenty of limestone just laying around. If that's something that you enjoy doing, just do it. I just think if it's something that you desire to do, I just tell you to take the steps toward doing it and look what's around you. See what everybody else has done or not doing. The main thing is just getting up and doing it and work hard at it. Because it's not really work if you enjoy it. You have to get out there. You have to take those steps, not anybody else.
For current and exclusive content, subscribe to CDE Lightband, connecting you at the speed of light.